is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to the brand new and beautiful Lugar Plaza. I want to thank you for joining us to celebrate this momentous day. Today is not only about this extraordinary public space, but it's also about recognizing one of our cities, our states, and our nation's great leaders. My name is Emily Mack, and I'm the Director of the Department of Metropolitan Development for Mayor Joe Hogsett. Today marks the culmination of an idea that began about 4 years ago. At that time, the Indianapolis-Marion County Building Authority began preliminary planning to substantially renovate this plaza and to make necessary repairs. Recognizing an opportunity to create a great public space, Mayor Ballard's office partnered with the Building Authority to completely reimagine and rebuild this space. In 2014, a national jury design competition was held, and designs were received from all across the country. I want to recognize and thank the members of the original jury that participated in this selection process. Brian Payne with the Central Indiana Community Foundation, Sherry Seiwert with Downtown Indy, Molly Jeffers, formerly with Mosaic City, Maria Rose with Cummins, Don Altemeyer with the Building Authority, Adam Teese, former DMD Director, and Council President Bob Osley. Through this project, Councilor Osley has been a huge champion and supporter. He not only provided insight and perspective, but he also shared his architectural design expertise. And it's my pleasure to now welcome the President of the Indianapolis City County Council, Bob Osley.
Good morning. It is an amazing joy to be here this morning to cut the ribbon and to celebrate the opening of the Richard G. Lugar Plaza. I want to thank Mayor Hogsett for his commitment to this project, Mayor Ballard for his support of our efforts here, the Lilly Endowment for its generous contribution, and most of all, Dick Lugar himself. Eagle Scout, Navy veteran, school board commissioner, mayor, senator, scholar, statesman, Hoosier. We're lucky to call him one of our own. It is truly fitting that we dedicate this plaza in Senator Lugar's name because he has always remained dedicated to us. And even now, Senator Lugar can discuss global denuclearization in one breath and the price per bushel Indiana farmers are getting for soybeans in the next. After 36 remarkable years in the United States Senate, Dick Lugar stood on the Senate floor for his farewell address and talked not about his global travels or vast experience, but about the influence being Indianapolis mayor had on his career. And as he said, I had the good fortune of serving 2 terms as the mayor of Indianapolis prior to my Senate service. And for the last 36 years, I've attempted to apply lessons learned during those early governing experiences to my work in the Senate. The truth, of course, is that the good fortune was ours. Our good fortune to have a mayor who championed creation of a downtown university, which ultimately became IUPUI, to have a visionary who saw the potential for Unigov and the economic opportunities for Indianapolis that followed, to have a leader who believed that his first responsibility to his constituents was to apply his best judgment. We were fortunate then, and we are fortunate to have him with us now. I believe it's not by chance that Dick Lugar's name has been on so many lips recently. That public spaces like this beautiful plaza and institutions like Indiana University's School of Global and International Studies are being named in his honor. In truth, I believe many of us feel a longing for the type of civility and mutual respect that defines Senator Lugar's long career in public service. The less civility and mutual respect we see in our public discourse, the more keenly we feel the longing for it. And the more often we call the names of those who, like Senator Lugar, continue to show us the meaning of citizenship and leadership. And so in the name of a man who spent so much of his career trying to bring people together, we dedicate this beautiful space, created to do the same. And it's my hope that a spirit of civility and mutual respect comes to define Lugar Plaza, much as it defines the man himself, and that we, like he, leave Indianapolis a better place for our service here. Thank you.
Our next speaker serves on the board of Visit Indy and understands the need for vibrant and engaging amenities in our community. It's my pleasure to introduce the Minority Leader of the City County Council, Mike Mcquillan.
Thank you, Director Mack. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate with Senator Lugar and all of you. When Dick Lugar and L. Keith Mcquillan set out to remake Indianapolis in the 1960s, who would have imagined where we would be today? I mean, really, who would have thought that 50 years after Unigov, we'd have a Democratic mayor and a Democratic council? I mean, think about it. But it's common for us in these settings to focus on the personal and policy accomplishments of this man, and we should. But as council minority leader and a former GOP county chairman, I think it paints an incomplete picture to forget the impact the senator had on Indiana politics and national politics. Through Unigov and the cementing of visionary leadership for a generation, he taught that generation and the one after it how to organize from the precinct up for a higher purpose and to argue for an optimistic vision with better ideas. His coattails are long. Untold numbers of elected officials have this man to thank for their careers. He championed female leaders and candidates and has inspired broad participation in a big tent party. I know I am grateful for his inspiration. But for him, politics was a mean to an end. Winning an election meant the opportunity to govern, and to govern well. He led our country in a time when we more thoughtfully and thoroughly espoused the ideas that the expansion of democracy would lead to peace, and the expansion of free enterprise would lead to prosperity. We need to find our voice again on these foundations of American leadership. When he announced his 1996 presidential run, he said, I quote, "My candidacy is grounded on faith that Americans care deeply about their country. Faith that Americans know that the presidency is not entertainment. The essence of presidential leadership is to make important changes in our country without dividing our country." He leads with clarity of conscience and courage of conviction. He's confident enough in his ideas to listen thoughtfully to those with different opinions, and he's able to critique a thought without attacking the thinker. These are qualities to which we should all aspire, individually and collectively, and as a city and a country. And now for our kids and our grandkids, there will be a monument to that style of leadership. Here outside this monument, this city-county building, which itself signifies the division in history for this city, before Lugar and after Lugar. Congratulations, and thank you, Senator.
Indianapolis's passion for great public spaces continues to amaze and inspire me. And this space certainly wouldn't be possible without the support and generosity of our philanthropic community. I'd like to take a moment to thank the organizations that helped make this plaza possible. The Central Indiana Community Foundation, the Ephraimson Family Fund, the Greater Indianapolis Progress Committee, and the Crystal DeHaan Family Foundation. And last, but certainly not least, is the Lilly Endowment. I want to express my deep appreciation and sincere gratitude to the Lilly Endowment for not only being a huge financial supporter of this project, but also for being a believer, an advocate, and a champion of creative placemaking in our community. I'd like to welcome Clay Robbins, the Chairman, President, and CEO of the Lilly Endowment, to share a few words.
Thank you, Emily. On my way down here in the car, I was listening to the radio, and it just really hit me how much this represents good news for Indianapolis and how much we all should celebrate it. The name Lugar on this, it will give it us the kind of image that we want for our community. It's a place where people can come together from all different perspectives, and I believe they will. And what better name is there than Lugar for that to happen? But I also want to lift up that we've had two wonderful mayors here with Greg Ballard and Joe Hogsett, and this wouldn't have happened like this without them, and the fact that they've also gotten along very well, and the fact that Joe has put this into motion so that it would be named after Senator Lugar. And this is the way things need to be done in this world, and I believe that Indianapolis does it and can do it. And so Lilly Endowment is very pleased to have been a part of it. Thank you all very much.
Reaching a major milestone like this can only be achieved through incredible teamwork. Let me share with you. Building on top of a 1962 parking garage is no easy task. However, we're so fortunate to have an amazing team of contractors that not only completed this project on time, but also within budget. I'd like to thank Rundell Ernstberger Associates and Axis Architecture for designing this amazing space and bringing this vision to life. Brandt Construction for building this plaza. You made an idea a reality. Core Planning Strategies for serving as a project manager and also an occasional therapist. Pepper Construction for working extensively with us early on to provide project budgets and cost estimates so that we could ensure that this plaza stayed within budget. RC Engineering and Blakely's for the design and the construction of the granite removal and replacement. And Project One for designing, creating, and installing the Sister Cities artwork. The foundation of this project, the idea, was put in place several years ago under the leadership of Mayor Greg Ballard. Mayor Ballard recognized the importance of public spaces that could strategically shape the physical and social character of an area. To offer remarks, I'd like to invite Mayor and Professor Greg Ballard to the stage.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit different direction and start out with, if you look at this area right here, all of it, and what it looked like 10 years ago, and what it looked like today, it is completely different. None of these great facilities in this area were here, and this was the last piece. And I, as I left the office, this was an idea. We had done the design competition, but putting all the pieces together was not all complete. And that's why Mayor Hogsett's team did an incredible job of putting all this together so that the public has this space now that completes this area. And I can't give them enough credit for seeing this thing through, and that's why we're all here today. So thank you, Mayor Hogsett. I appreciate that very much. Just a couple things about then Mayor Lugar and Senator Lugar, as I mostly knew him. He's heard me say this before, but probably most of you haven't. I can't thank that man enough. I spent 23 years in the Marine Corps, and guys like me had to go do things we didn't necessarily want to do. But that Nunn Lugar initiative made sure that people like me and our families were positively impacted by what they did. I cannot emphasize that enough, about how much that man meant to the world, so that we did not have to go do some of those things because of him and Senator Nunn. Then I became the mayor, and it was an honor, obviously, to meet him and to talk to him. So many memories of that. Every time I went up there in January for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I would go see him. He was more than gracious to see me, absolutely, every time I came up. But I remember the first time in January of '08, and he wanted to go have breakfast in the Senate dining room. And I'm a little older now, but our age difference is still the same, obviously. But all I remember is that he is bounding up the stairs to go to the Senate dining room, and I'm trying to keep up with him. That's what I really remember. And then we had a great breakfast, and he introduced me to some of his fellow senators, and that's what I remember. He was always so gracious. And being able to talk to him about Indianapolis, because it was kind of funny, we would usually meet early in the morning, and he already had read all of the papers about Indianapolis already, well before I had. So it was amazing to see that all the time. But he was always gracious to me, obviously, and helped in every opportunity that he could, because he loves this city as much as all of us do, obviously. And there is a marked difference in this city before Lugar and after Lugar. I don't think there's any question about that. And the renaissance of Indianapolis really started when Richard Lugar became the mayor of Indianapolis. That's my opinion. So I want to thank all of you for coming out today. Enjoy this great space, because it really is special to all of us now. Thank you so much.
Designing this plaza wasn't something that occurred behind the walls of this building. It was important to us to gather input and insight from the community. We believed it was critical to hear from the community stakeholders so that the plaza could be designed to accommodate all of our neighbors. I'd like to thank the following community partners for your participation: the Central Indiana Community Foundation, Downtown Indy, Cummins, Salesforce, Millhouse, the Indianapolis City Market, the Indianapolis Cultural Trail, Indigo, and the Local Initiative Support Corporation. I'd also like to thank Greg Ballard for reviewing construction drawings and making recommendations to ensure accessibility. The Department of Public Works and Indy Parks, especially Todd Wilson and Don Colvin, thank you not only for your financial support, but also thank you for providing infrastructure and technical guidance throughout this project. The Marion County Sheriff's Department for working with us to help ensure the safety of this area, and to Ken Clark with the Information Services Agency for helping ensure that we have Wi-Fi on this plaza. I'd also like to thank Biederman Redevelopment Ventures for partnering with us on a robust operations and programming plan for Lugar Plaza. And I'm so excited for programming to begin in spring of 2019. Our next speaker is someone that passionately believes in the power of partnerships. Partnerships formed in the public, private, nonprofit, and community sectors that have the ability to come together for the good and to positively change the health, the economy, the culture, and the vitality of our city. It's a value that is deeply rooted in him, and it's one that he instills in his staff. And it's a legacy that has transpired decades of Indianapolis mayors. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the 49th mayor of the city of Indianapolis, Mayor Joe Hogsett.
Thank you, Emily, for that kind introduction, and thank you, Mayor Ballard, for your kind words. Clay, can't thank the Lilly Endowment enough. To have both President Osley and Leader Mcquillan here today makes it special, and thank you all for joining us as we celebrate the opening of Richard G. Lugar Plaza. I'm always happy to welcome another public space to our great city, the city we call home. Indianapolis, and that we name such a place after Senator Lugar is also quite fitting. I know some of you may find this hard to imagine, but I will be brief. I'll forego the list of his many accomplishments as a scholar, although they have been referred to previously. I won't describe the enormous impact that Unigov has had on our city, although it has been referenced. And there is simply no way I can do justice to the 36 years representing our state in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. But I can express my admiration for what many believe, what many consider his signature quality: a sense of unity. As mayor, Richard Lugar understood that while everyone may not be the member of the same political party, we are all residents of this great city, Indianapolis. He showed that anyone whose chief interest was improving Indianapolis would be heard, regardless of your partisan orientation. As a senator from Indiana, he routinely reached across the aisle, working alongside many Democrats on important issues. That commitment to unity sometimes, I'm sure, disappointed partisans. But if Senator Lugar felt that a piece of legislation was good for Hoosiers, who was he to argue politics? He understood that political parties are important, and they are good for some things, but not for everything. It is my fervent hope that we all can live up to this tremendous legacy that he leaves, that he gives to us, the legacy of cooperation and of unity. Mayor Lugar, welcome home to your city. Welcome home to the city that you helped build. We are grateful for the legacy that you give us, that you leave to us, and for everything that you have helped us accomplish. So now, please help me welcome Senator, Mayor, Indianapolis's own Richard G. Lugar.
I simply want to start by saying I love Indianapolis. I love this great city. I love the people who are a part of the history and the present of this great city. It makes such a difference to me today to come to this beautiful plaza in front of a building that I revere, which I spent 8 terrific years working with many of you and trying to think about how Indianapolis would be great in the minds not only of our citizens, but around the world. I'm so appreciative today for Mike Mcquillan and Von Upsley and their leadership. I appreciate so much the friendship and the leadership of Mayor Ballard. Obviously, Joe Hogsett has led this city very, very well, and I'm appreciative to both the mayors for making this plaza possible. I'm very grateful that they are honored me with the naming of it today. I want to mention also that my wife Charlene is here tonight. We are formerly co-presidents of the student body at Denison University. The elective office literally brought us together, and we have celebrated 62 years of marriage. We've had four wonderful sons. And two are here today. Bob and John Lugar, and Mark and David, our other 2 sons. Each of these young men have meant so much to me in terms of their achievements and accomplishments. And Bob right now, let me just say, is a leader out at the Lugar Farm. When UNICEF came, 604 acres of Lugar Farm became a part of the city of Indianapolis, and is still in corn and soybeans and hardwood trees. And I know all of you will sympathize with the soybean part of that. But be that as it may, John Lugar has been instrumental in putting together the Lugar Center, our think tank in the Willard office building in Washington, D.C. with Indiana University people. The 11th floor we share. And we're continuing to work on the problems of arms control that were mentioned earlier on. Feeding the world and bipartisan politics. And I want to mention the latter aspect because this is certainly represented here today in a circle of friends who value Indianapolis first, value our country first. Let me mention, just parenthetically, because these memories flood together, but at the time that President Nixon came to office, he stayed in Washington throughout the first year of his presidency because of Vietnam protesters. At least that was the allegation. But his advisors said by the second year you ought to go out into the countryside and you ought to at least visit a city. And he chose Indianapolis as the city that he would visit with Pat Nixon, his wife. They came out here, and the Lugar Plaza has changed all of this a good bit. But somewhat to the right of me today, the Nixons came in. Now, the buildings have changed too. I remember surrounding us were a lot of people who were sharpshooters. The president was worried, as it was, about his safety on that occasion. He gave a fairly short speech with Mrs. Nixon there by his side, and the 3 of us retired to the elevator to go up to the 25th floor of the City County building, my office. The president was palpably relieved to be in the elevator. And perhaps because of this, he blurted out an invitation, which I still recall. He said, "Lugar, I want you to go with Moynihan." This is Daniel Patrick Moynihan, then one of his aides who became a senator from New York. "I want you and Moynihan to go to Brussels to represent our country at the NATO conference on cities." And so, during the 25th floor ascent, I accepted that invitation, we went over to Brussels, and not lacking nerve, I invited all the mayors of the world to come to Indianapolis the next year. About 50 responded. And it was a glorious outpouring of ethnic identity as these mayors found citizens of our city who had roots in their countries and had breakfasts and lunches and what have you together. The choruses of the Indiana high schools, 400 students over here on the Monument Circle, sang Ode to Joy, the NATO anthem. There were wonderful occasions of that variety. But the point of all of this is to say that we were determined, citizens of Indianapolis, to become not only a great city, a great capital city of Indiana. We were then, because of Unigov, now in the top 10 cities in terms of population in the country. We were going to become a city that attracted the attention of the world, that had leadership, that had opportunities. And that remains a perspective of Mayor Hogsett and the council and the Chamber of Commerce and the Lilly Endowment and many who have been recognized here today, especially important. Let me mention just as a historical note, because I have not had a chance to greet him, but I saw in the audience today P.E. McAllister. P.E. celebrated his 100th birthday recently. From the very beginning, P.E. McAllister was a stalwart friend and leader, and I'm so grateful that he is with us after 100 years of a great life. I see K.P. Singh here today, another man who has meant such a difference in the international scope. I could cite really one after another, and I'm tempted to do so. Let me just say simply that I appreciated the view from the 25th floor. Buildings began to come up. It's a very different perspective now, that's for certain. But it's a city that I love, a city that has so much going for it and such a great future ahead of it. And I appreciate especially the perspective of Mayor Ballard, Mayor Hogsett, who recognize how many citizens are now living in the downtown area, how many are enjoying the heart of the city of Indianapolis, how many really would like to spend some time here on the plaza, really enjoying life and each other. A coming together here at this point in the history of Indianapolis, which is especially significant and beautiful. Many things are going to happen around this perspective, I'm certain. I look forward to watching all of them and taking part in them. But let me just conclude by saying that this is a day that I will always remember. I hope it's a day that many of you will always remember too, because it comes with a flow of leadership that came about through 5 mayors at least. I remember the Greater Memphis Progress Committee invited 5 mayors to give a panel discussion a couple of years ago. That included the late Bill Hudnut, my dear friend, and of course Mayor Goldsmith, Mayor Peterson, Mayor Ballard, Mayor Hogsett. And one of the things that was characteristic of all of the comments that day, as well as all that was said about those mayors, was from the very beginning there has been a flow of ideas, a flow of unity, a flow of perspective. It was not partisan, but a flow of love for Indianapolis and all the possibilities there were in this great city. So I thank each one of you for braving 51-degree weather today. I ask, perhaps skeptically, what happens if it rains today? And Mayor Hogsett immediately indicated we simply put a tent up. ready for everything, as a matter of fact. Well, the tent is not up. We are all up. Our spirits are up. I thank you so very, very much. I love Indianapolis.
Again, thank you so much for joining us to celebrate today. Before we conclude, I would like to recognize and thank Big Car for providing us with a preview of space activation and placemaking. Please stay tuned for future programming announcements, and events and activities will really begin in spring of 2019. Okay, so without further delay, let's cut this ribbon.
Mayor Joe?
This is about right.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful speech.